G'day guys. Today we're playing one of the harder matchups that I find, which is against US and when they go airborne. Airborne's quite versatile. It's got a lot of good little abilities with their Pathfinders, smokes, rifle grenades, and paras with their Zooks. So today we're playing Wehr, obviously, against the US, and we're going to try and counter that. We're going to utilise the breakthrough doctrine, and our build order is so far 2 Grens, we're going to go a Ketten, and then we'll go into an MG and then another Gren, and then we'll see from there, depending on what units they bring out and the skill level of the player. The Ketten we still use. Some people say it's not worth it anymore. I think it is. I go straight for Immuni. And then I find by bringing the Ketten out after the 2 Grens, we've got enough Muni to go straight into the communication cables. And then I'll send it to cap either a manpower point or a VP while we wait for that to upgrade. So we move our engineers away from the Pathfinders that are in green cover there. We won that initial engagement with the Grens, and we are capping the centre VP. We're going to push south with our Grens because we suspect there's going to be units down here, which of course there is. Straight onto the Pathfinders, we're going to zone them off and they retreat. Sending the Ketten back to back cap all the points that we haven't got. Again, I don't know if it's worth not bringing the Ketten out and capping fuel straight away. I don't know if it's worth it. We'll wait till somebody much smarter than me figures that out. We dodged the grenade there with the engineers, but ultimately we're going to get hammered here. So we just hold on as long as possible and just to hold them in place and then retreat. Meanwhile, down south, we've been able to cap uncontested. Kettenkrad's doing its job, and we're bringing up an MG to cover the middle. We're going to bring our Grens up north, where we expect that they'll be pushing south. Well, south from where they were, so to mid. We've upgraded to the Assault Gren package, which makes the Grens actually useful. Biggest thing with 1v1s is you don't want to stay stagnant with the units. Especially early game, you want to be pushing around and trying to find those engagements. We try and push his units back into our MG. They catch one there. This looks like it's going to be a pretty good engagement for us. Unfortunately, I catch that grenade there. I totally missed it, forcing those guys to retreat. So with our remaining Grens, we try and run back to cover towards the MG, obviously trying to draw him in. Forces them off, and we're able to maintain that VP. Push up with our Grens again, trying to make the most of every opportunity and start capping out that Muni. Bring our 3rd unit of Grens out and push them up to support. They've popped a flare. We want to move straight out from under that. There's no point in us just standing around waiting for them to manoeuvre around us because they've got visibility. Obviously we're not going to engage with our engineers there because the Pathfinders tear us to shreds. Our Ketten does run straight into their main force. Although it does die, it does give us the opportunity to reposition all our units, including the MG, to try and catch them out. The NGs we're going to send straight to the VP and use our newly brought out MG to suppress those guys and take them out of the fight. There you go.
Enemy forces have captured
Using the MG and the Grens together. Moving into cover. Try and dodge this grenade pretty unsuccessfully. Set up our NG and take the fight to them. Unfortunately, it looks like they've got more riflemen coming in. Forced to retreat that one. It's not looking good for us. They smoke out our MG with their Pathfinders there. We're going to try and push up on that suppressed unit, try and make the most of them being suppressed. Relocate the MG, expecting a flank. Unfortunately, they were a bit too quick and I was a bit too slow. Have to retreat our Grens, and there was no point in hanging around with this MG. They're coming at us from all angles. So rather be safe than sorry. Fight's lost and retreat it. Save the manpower. We're going to start building the Luftwaffe company in preparation to try and get a verbal wind out. We're going to push all our units back into the fight. Unfortunately, for some reason, the MG didn't auto-reinforce. I try manually, but it runs out of range just as I did it, and I didn't realise it at the time. We're going to reset up the MG into a different, more beneficial position. Going to go straight into upgrading to tier 2B. The Pathfinders get a good grenade on the MG. That's one of the strongest things about the Pathfinders is against MGs. And now this engagement just turns into a total clusterfuck for me, and I retreat the MG straight away and retreat all my units with only doing minimal damage to them. Luckily not receiving a wipe. The MG, we repositioned theirs, pinned them down, that worked pretty well. Another MG out, so that's 3 MGs. These guys are pretty good at manoeuvring, as you can see here, just demonstrating on this MG. They flank really well. This player's pretty decently skilled. We decap that and run with our NGs. Meanwhile, they're putting the pressure on us down south, and we're just going to at least decap this centre VP. Otherwise, they're going to end up with all 3 VPs. We've got 2 MGs covering each other there. It's a pretty good setup.
We have lost the sector.
And now we're going to push south with our Grens to try and catch out that Pathfinder that's down there capping. We see him there, push up on him. I was hoping that he was paying minimal attention, we could melt his units, but unfortunately he's right onto it, and he gets away pretty well. We don't actually do a lot of damage to it at all. I thought we'd do a fair bit more. And then we've got our NGs coming in behind to back cap. Meanwhile, I've got the three MGs set up in the middle. They're all covering each other, but unfortunately what I didn't account for was the Greyhound coming out, which forces the 2 of my 3 MGs to retreat. We're going to decap the southern VP while it's happening, and we're not going to retreat that one. We're just going to reposition it, because as far as damage, it hasn't taken much at all. Decapped, pushing north with our Grenadiers, hoping to catch them, but they've pulled all their units back. They've popped another flare, so there's going to be no surprises as far as where we're coming from. We do manage to get a good engagement and force them off there. They've just gone straight for the retreat, not wasting manpower themselves. We're going to split our units and try and cap while we wait. Also, we're going to pop heals on our HQ, because all our units are now getting pretty low and it's worth the fuel. And we also have a verbal wind out. Once the Grens are capped, we're going to just retreat them to get the heals on them, so they're actually fighting with full health for once in an engagement. And we're going to set up the MG. The Pyos here just retreat straight away. If I hang around any longer, they would have just wiped them. Obviously their main force is south, so we're going to reposition the verbal wind south, or at least into the mid where we expect them to come. At the time, I'm not looking right now, but at the time I noticed the Pathfinders flanking my northern MG, so I've repositioned that. Obviously repositioning my other MG to cover the south where we expect him to come from. There you go, you see I'm repositioning him, and I'm going to push the NGs up. I'd sent the verbal wind down here, but I'd not forgotten about it, except I just sort of pushed him in too far. Obviously they were able to get a couple of AT nades off and force that back, which is pretty unfortunate for me that I didn't manage to kite them. Again, I'd sent the NGs up, but I wasn't watching. I was concentrating down south and didn't notice that the Pathfinders were there capping. Now we're going to micro here, get them all into some cover. We're going to get some good grenades off here. Just so happens to work out quite well. We decimate them, but unfortunately they're able to get some good grenades off and wipe one of my squads. So I didn't wipe any of theirs, they wiped mine, so they managed to come out on top there, but it was a bit of a sub-zero there. We both lost out in the end. Again, the Greyhound being quite annoying. I think now I go straight for a martyr while I wait for the oh, there you go, the engineers finally remembered about them, pushed them back. We're going to send one MG to cap that and the other MG to fix the verbal wind, and then reposition the MG. And we're going to bring one of our other MGs up and try and cover the middle VP. Unfortunately, there's Pathfinders there. Our adversaries straight onto it and rifle grenades it, and yeah, it's pretty devastating, killing 3 of the 4 units. We do suppress it and come in with our Grens, but it's almost too little too late. Luckily we managed to get a heap of nades off into the MG in the building there and all but wipe him, and luckily get the wipe on the MG as he runs away. We have the Martyr out, so hopefully we'll be able to deal with the Greyhound next time we see him. We've pushed up on this AT gun that we've caught out of position, but then they've come down with their full forces. Lucky timing with the Martyr and the Greyhound. Greyhound tries to run, but unfortunately for him, he runs straight past my Grens, and we're just going to AT nade him, or Shrek them. Retrieve that unit straight back and have the whirlwind there, try and put some damage on. I thought I'd be able to get the engineer just to do a bit of AoE damage to the clumped up unit there, but he just gets all but insta wiped, and the second unit of NGs was heading that way and luckily pulled them back to start repairs on the tanks. I'm going to set up the MG. They've smoked the VP while at the same time popping a flare, so they've got full vision. We're going to throw our NGs in, use the smoke to our advantage there. Obviously their northern troops can't see our NGs, so we're going to try and get some flame on them. Pull back the verbal wind, and we're going to have to retreat our engineers because as they get decimated. But meanwhile the MG has been able to do a bit of suppression. The northern MGs obviously suppressing the Pathfinders there, but they smoked it. At the time, I don't think I noticed that one. Yep, and there it is there, rifleman and captain straight on top of it. Hit retreat as soon as we notice, and we were very lucky and able to retrieve this without losing it. Able to get away there, lucky we didn't lose the tanks or any of the engineer units, just capturing that just in time. Capping the VP, and we were able to push up on these unsupported Pathfinders. And also catch out their AT gun, get it some nades off and decrew that one. But we did just see the Sherman there. Turns out those Pathfinders were supported, so we're going to retreat with them. And the Kubel's able to decap that VP. We're going to try and reposition our MG. They see that, they're pulling back as we push up. And now it becomes a bit of a MG versus MG battle there in the building. Unfortunately, they get our cretin down south that we've forgotten about. Pull back our Grens. The MG in the building's nearly dead. We're going to bring our verbal wind up to finish it off, but it wasn't required. The MG does it by itself. We're going to send a bit of a offensive group up north with our engineers and MG, and even the martyr up there for a bit of AT, just in case the Sherman shows up. Well, and we've caught them out. He's just retreated straight away. Obviously wasn't really expecting us to be there defending that one. Maybe hoping to get a flank in on us. I'm going to push the Grenadiers south and go for this VP. Find their units there. We duck into cover. Try and flank with our 1 unit of Grens, and we're going to drop a bombing run on them, and they're just going to pull back from that, and no damage done. But we did manage to zone them off at least, and we've figured out their position of the other of the Sherman. AT gun is out. We're going to push that up north now. We don't need the motor up there. That's moved back to the centre. So we've got a fairly balanced defence force up north.
Supply trucks are available to bolster our resources.
Capping the southern VP there with the Grenadiers. They've pushed up north, pushed up again with their units. We're going to just retreat from that. There's no chance we were going to survive that. We don't want to waste any manpower or potential wipes on units there. We're going to reposition the MG because we figure that they're probably going to push from that direction. There's no point in covering centre at the moment when we've got another one there. Now they do have a flare in the centre that we heard go off. Meanwhile, we're going to push up a little bit further with our NGs just to try and decap, plant some mines. that they'll come back to bite us though, unfortunately. The verbal wind's there trying to take out their aircraft, and it actually manages to shoot it down. They've obviously dropped smoke on our MG so they can cap. We're going to push up with our Grens to try and support it and reposition the verbal wind now that they know where it was. Pushing up with our Grens to support the MG. That's been smoked. Smoke started to dissipate, and unfortunately for them, it just catches the riflemen in the range and manages to suppress them, and even managed to pin. The Sherman's shot obviously at the engineers who were standing right next to the mine. That's what I meant by it's going to catch us out, and I've had to retreat them. Well, I was going to retreat them anyway against the Sherman. Pushed forward. Fortunately, they've got an MG there. One squad of Grens is pinned. We're going to try and flank with the other. Keep those units of Grens there. They're pinned. Leave them there just a bit longer. Get some grenades off. Unfortunately for us, it wasn't a great cluster, and doesn't wipe the MG. They have pulled it back though, and I just managed to get a Wehr off, obviously seeing all their troops there, so we're going to set a barrage right there and hopefully get some good hits. Yep. Same spot. 3 in a row, exactly the same fucking spot, and yeah, that was very disappointing as far as barrages go. Meanwhile, looks like they are going to push up north while just slowly capping south. We're going to send our NGs south, and luckily we've got the AT gun here. It's going to punish the Sherman. He's hitting the verbal wind, but unfortunately they have managed to outflank our MG, which is the only thing really stopping the infantry there now that the verbal wind has to get pulled back. So we're going to retreat the MG pull the AT gun back and just sort of try and zone the infantry off with the verbal wind as we slowly pull that back.
Victory point is under enemy control.
We're going to decap that center point. The NGs there found a mine and an MG nest. We're going to repay the favour with a mine, but it doesn't quite do the same amount of damage. But we're going to use the opportunity, because all their units were north, we're going to push down with our grenadiers and try and flank that MG nest, but not before trying a Nebelwerfer barrage on it, which goes about as well as the other one. I think it hits it once from memory. Yeah, that's, I think, about as close as it gets. Again, not the greatest. Yeah, pushing down south with our grenadiers now.
Lost.
Both units throw grenades. Obviously, in hindsight now, I realise I probably only needed one. Could have finished it off with a flamethrower. We're going to push up with the NGs, and they can cap the VP while the Grens take the victory point. Got a nice little defensive set up in the centre there. Now that we have a second P4 as well. After them reminding us that we can actually build bunkers as well, we're going to pop a bunker up on this VP and push back with the Grens to cap while the engineers are busy. Unfortunately, we do also run into a mine, so we'll have to retreat those guys. Looks like they're pushing down from south. They've smoked our AT, so we're going to pull that back to get them out of the smoke. Going to push up with the verbal wind to try and hit those infantry. That just gets slapped by the Shermans, but we've got the AT guns there. That's going to start hitting that, and we're going to bring the mortar up. Also, we're going to get an Nebelwerfer off, and this time we really punish them. It gets them good. Unfortunately, I don't think it gets a wipe at all, but it certainly gets a few good hits in. And now that Sherman's pretty low, we're going to push the mortar up. Unfortunately, we push it up a little bit too far, and yeah, it runs straight into a AT gun, and it's not even the AT gun that hits it, it's the two Shermans just clean it up. But while that was happening, I did figure that the Shermans were up north, so I had pushed my P4 straight into their base, knowing that there wasn't going to be any real challenge there for it, and I could just drain a bit of manpower and keep him busy and prevent him from pushing up and capping any more VPs. So yeah, we're able to get some real good hits there. Unfortunately, I probably should have kept it there for one more hit. As you can see, the medical station was almost wiped out, and that would have been really good to be able to either take that out or take a few more manpower out. But I was worried, and I didn't want to get the P4 killed over nothing. And these guys are pushing down on the VP, and I thought, yeah, no worries, there's a bunker there, that's fine, and then realised that I'd forgot to bloody upgrade it with an MG, hadn't I? But that's alright, there's the Grens there, and they zone them off. And now we bring our second P4 out, and yeah, we're starting to look alright. I'm pretty happy with our current config. There's the Sherman. We're going to bring both P4s down. The engineers are already on their way. Luckily, the MG gets up just in time to suppress these guys. While they're suppressed, we drop a bombing run on them and force them back. Unfortunately, the P4 shoots at the wrong one, and they get a couple of 18 nades off on that, which forces me to have to pull that back. The NGs are there, they're going to hopefully zone the riflemen off. But this is when I realised that they had 3 Shermans and I could be in quite a lot of strife. I feel like for him this was actually a game-changing moment. This is the point where he should have pushed all 3 Shermans forward. He would have definitely killed definitely killed both of my P4s, and potentially only lost 1 or 2 Shermans. But either way, I would have no tanks left, and he would have at least 1, maybe 2. But luckily at this stage, he didn't chase me down. I'd brought the AT gun up just in case they did decide to do a later push, but it didn't happen. Meanwhile, the Grens are pushing north. We're going to catch these Pathfinders out. We're going to cap the northern VP uncontested, and we're going to get a Nebelwerther off down on the southern side. You don't see it in the replay, but I managed to just catch a unit. I didn't wipe him, but it does zone them off. Now with all 3 VPs capped, he's going to have a very hard time coming back from this. I've got 1 P4 back up to full health, second one's getting repaired. I'm going to preemptively throw a MG south, and yeah, at this stage it's just a matter of holding on to obviously only 2 of them. His points are dropping very rapidly at this stage. All in all, I think the Airborne battle group for the US is probably the hardest battle group to come up against in 1v1 in the current meta. The amount of troops they can get on the field early game, it's so hard to get early map control, or rather stop them dominating early map control. But in this case, we were able to do it. It took us a lot of MGs, a lot of MG microing, and a lot of support with our units. But yeah, it is possible, and there you go. Thanks for watching.